How does an all-wheel drive 1,200 kilometer range, a wading depth of 700 millimeters, can be converted into a king-size bed, all in one car for 42,000 US dollars? Do I have your attention? This is the ROX 01 and my name is Elliot Richards. Now you may have noticed that this channel is called Elliot on EVs, not Elliot on PHEVs or Elliot on Rexes. That sounds a bit weird. But I think it's time we actually drove a few range extending hybrids and see what all the fuss is about. Of course, EVs don't fit every situation in the world, all the world over. Some places don't have the charging infrastructure. Some people are worried about moving across. And so I've got this. This was originally called the Polestar 01. And that name is so laughably bad, I had to write a tweet about it. Polestar, like cross between Polestar and Stones. Everything was wrong, but they've rebranded, they've renamed. They're now called ROX Motors, and this is the 01. Their USP though is travel and outdoors. But for me, at first glance, this is a car which looks like it has a bit of an identity crisis. Nowhere is this identity crisis more apparent than looking at the exterior of the car. It's a little bit Yang Wang, it's a little bit Land Rover Defender, well, it's quite a lot Land Rover Defender. And so I'm not really sure what this is. Is it going for the luxury off-road market? Is it going for the serious off-road market? Or is it kind of falling in the middle somewhere? That's fine, most companies do. More importantly though, this car was designed by Pininfarina. Yes, the Pininfarina in their Shanghai studio. So it has a completeness in its design. It feels very well thought out across the whole car. It doesn't strike me as being particularly outstanding, like flashy or over the top. It's just solid, dependable, slightly copycat design of that Range Rover Defender, and it keeps locking the doors. But this is a hybrid. This is a range extending hybrid, and this is not really for markets such as Shanghai. We've got very good charging infrastructure. A car like this now in 2024 seems a little bit redundant. This really is for export markets. They are already going to Africa, Central Asia, and the Middle East. And in fact, this is going to be the UAE's police car. So expect to see a lot more of these on the road and hopefully not in your rear view mirror. And you've just locked again. Coming down here, you get those soft roader vibes because it doesn't have like proper solid chunky feel. It's gone down that luxury kind of, like, you know, chrome bits down here. That signals to me luxury rather than solid off-roader like an Ineos Grenadier or a Bollinger, which were very squarely in that very off-roady segment. So my question is, as a soft roader, is this just all show and no go? Well, not really. This car really does have the go, go, go attitude. And that's really thanks to its monstrous 740 Newton meters of torque being fed by two electric motors, give a combined power output of 350 kilowatts. Of course, all of this is topped up with the 1.5 litre turbocharged engine in the front there. But what it basically means is you put your foot down and it absolutely rockets ahead. For something so big, so heavy, again, it's scary how fast these things can be. 0 to 100 in 5.5 seconds. 100 kilometers now, that is. 5.5 seconds. Those are insane numbers for an SUV. This has something called continuous variable damping shocks. It doesn't have air suspension. So it does mean when you're driving on slightly bumpy road, you can really feel the bumps as you're going through. But if this is going to be an off-roader, you want to feel some of those bumps. You don't always want them to be completely smoothed out. In a road driving situation around the city, obviously you don't want to feel those, but if you're going off-road, then some feedback from the surface underneath you would really, really help. But as we drive along these urban roads here today, it's a very easy and pleasant place to be. Being in an SUV, I'm very high up. The suspension is decent. My visibility is adequate. Pulling out of junctions, the pillars are really thick, and sometimes when you're really turning around, you can't quite see. Luckily, it's got absolutely gigantic wing mirrors, which does help quite a lot. But this is a car which costs 42,000 US dollars, and it's going to spend most of its life in traffic, in a city like me today, not moving very far. So what other features does this car have to keep me entertained in traffic situations? Well, if it gets really bad, then I can just park up and use this car's kitchen mode. Yes, it has a kitchen mode. In the world of competing USPs to see who's got the most unique selling point, ROX has gone down the path of actually putting a kitchen in the back of their car, which I will now demonstrate to you. As you can see, this is the back door. I have a plug with a proper plug socket. This car comes with 2.2 kilowatts of external power, so you can plug in your gadgets or whatever you need to have. But here, I've got my table. Let me just get this down here. Proper table, so you could prepare dinner there. I've also got a filtered water system, which comes out here in the tap, and it can be hot water, warm water, or cold water. That is amazing in a car. It also comes with a removable light. It also comes with a plug socket. It also comes with a cutlery set. In here is pots and pans. In here, knives, forks, and chopsticks. Really then, a little bit of a gimmick, but pretty cool in a car which markets itself as travel and adventure ready in a 2.5 ton SUV. Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to say, it also has towing capability of up to 750 kilograms. You thought the rear kitchen was enough? Oh no, have I got news for you. This has, in some models, an integrated awning which comes out of here on both sides. So perfect then for the UAE police in doing a police checkpoint, or on the school run in the Wirral, somehow. Let's briefly talk about some of those off-roading capabilities, because to compete with the likes of the Defender or the Toyota Land Cruiser, then it needs to have the real chops. It can't just be a soft roader and not actually go off-road. Now, I live in Shanghai. The biggest hill we've got here is the pile of leaves outside my front door this morning. But I've been told this can do up to 45 degrees approach angle. That is extremely steep. Also, it has a wading depth of up to 700 millimeters, and that's monitored, so it can tell you inside how deep you're going through at the time. Now, by comparison, the Toyota Land Cruiser, one of the best-selling SUVs of all time, can also do 700 mil of wading depth. The Defender can do between 500 and 900 mil, so not quite there on the same level as the Defender just yet. Where this really shines is driving around on urban roads, on highways. I can't test the off-road ability because there are no off-roading places here in Shanghai, but that is where this is going to spend most of its life. And as a soft off-roader, can we call it a soft off-roader? It's very easy in situations like this. However, where it's much more difficult is parking. This is probably a bit too big. It's a few millimeters bigger than the Land Rover Defender, and in tight urban parking situations, this is a little bit annoying. It does have self-parking. I've got the button down here, so it makes it much easier, but you know, tight parking situations are a frequent occurrence in Shanghai. When I go and park this car tonight, it will be very tight and I'm going to be struggling to get it in the space. So in this, we're going to have to talk about both the battery and the engine. At the front, it has a 1.5 litre turbocharged engine giving power to the battery. Just about here if you're on the highway and you hear it kind of kick in when the battery starts depleting. So it's pretty quiet. Just before we go onto the battery though, what does this kind of shape remind you of? For me, it's like a Lincoln Navigator, very tall, extended back end. But inside this car, it also has the batteries. Now there's a standard range and a long range one. The standard range comes with a 44 kilowatt hour battery, and the long range one comes with a 58 kilowatt hour battery. Both are CATL supplied batteries, and it's the lithium ternary option that they've chosen. Now with this battery only, it gives you around about 300 kilometers of CLTC range, which is not actually that bad. But with the range extending petrol motor in the front, it gives you over 1,200 kilometers of CLTC range. So again, take that with a massive pinch of salt. I do have my AC and DC fast charging, so I can actually just run this around on the battery when I want to, and that's what most people do here. They get something like this in the city, which I don't agree with, and they drive it on electric mode during the week, and then when they go to Hangzhou on the weekend, they can use the range extender features as well. Now, when you come onto the interior, you're kind of met with this very mature looking design, because this is something you do not expect from a company with its first car. Now, I understand they're going for that premium luxury market, and they really have nailed it. This is a very surprising interior. So it's got some really great details in here, like there's proper metal round here, no piano black like Zeekr. Zeekr could go to the same supplier as this and get their lovely material from there. They also have this white oak, I think it's white oak, on the dashboard up here. Again, thinking about the tactile and the softness of some materials, but still keeping it very premium without going down the piano black route. There is no piano black in here, so I'm very, very happy. But what do you get as a driver of a ROX 01? Well, I have a rather large screen here. I have another rather large screen here, very clear. And again, as a first attempt from a brand, this UI UX is super easy to use. It's not in English, but it's very clear. I've got little tiles here, one to control like my seats, one control my map, and one can see like the overall state of the battery of the car. I've got 23% of EV only range left. And of course, this being a luxury soft roady car, all the seats are ventilated, all of the seats have heating. The steering wheel is also heated. I've got both wireless chargers down here. And you know what? This seat is extremely comfortable. It's meant for those long journeys of, what is it, over 1,000 kilometers you can get from this car. I don't really have anything to complain about in here, and I like how they've thought about this is a little bit more than just an SUV, clearly going after that Land Rover Defender market rather than the Toyota Land Cruiser market. And let's be honest, all SUVs these days are going down this route. It's only the very brave, like Bollinger, which I think has gone out of business, and Monroe and Ineos, who are really going down the rugged off-roading route. But even they have more luxury features in their cars now. One thing I'm not such a big fan of is this massive, chunky, like ICE vehicle drive mode selector. It's very slow. It just doesn't feel intuitive. I wish it was just a stalk up here. You know, it makes it feel more chunky, more, I don't know, aggressive. But for me, it just functionally doesn't work so well. Now, hopefully from there, you could see my extremely luxurious seat. Yes, this has two fully automatic seats which go up, down. It's got the ventilation, it's got the heating, like super luxury. I've got loads of buttons in here to maintain and control the features in here. Can also turn it into a bed. Maybe I'll do that now. Front seat is going forwards. There you go. So again, all fully adjustable, and I can control how this seat looks. How do I go back? There you go. Both these seats have these full functions, which is really, really impressive. Now, oh, my foot's getting trapped. I do have a screen up here, which I can push to lower down. Again, screens are becoming very normal in these luxury SUVs or MPVs these days. However, this is a car which costs 300,000 RMB, or about 42,000 US dollars. So to have a screen, to have these chairs, to have all of this space makes it amazing value for money. And the space doesn't just stop there with the seats. This has a 2.95 square meter floor. But not only that, in the back here, you can put the seats fully flat and have a king-sized bed. So you actually can properly camp in this car, not like compromise camping, which is what some of these seats are. You can have a full-on camping experience with your dinner in the kitchen. You can have a really comfortable night's sleep. You can watch TV. I mean, this is luxury off-roading glamping. I mean, it's a completely different lifestyle. Now, the oft-forgotten third row. Now, this is obviously going to be always a bit of a compromise, but as you can see back here, it's got ISOFIX on both sides. This doesn't have the ventilation, the heating. It does have these really nice headrests, and so you could on a long journey sit in the back. Ideally, you'd want to put children in here or your kids in here, because look at that. I mean, that is not going to be comfortable for a long journey. This is where it becomes very stripped back in terms of features, but you still have a very good view of your TV screen up there. I do have one USB charger here, one USB charger over there. That's pretty much it. Now these seats are thin, and so it's feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And so this is, I think, where you start seeing some of those compromises that have been made in the car, because I'm actually slipping down like this. At the end of my journey, I might end up over there. Ugh. I think of this then as a boutique car. It's one which you won't see that many of, well, especially probably in your country, but here in Shanghai we don't see many of them. It's much more of a kind of niche kind of product that if you don't want a Li Auto, then you can jump into one of these instead for a lot less money compared to the top of the range Li Auto models. This can become a very attractive proposition to people who want some off-road features in a more premium package. You know, and I can't really complain about the drive in here. It's very quiet, it's got double pane thickness windows, the sound system is great, the screen and the UI UX is fantastic. You know, it self-records, it's got cameras all around, it's recording all around me, very much like a Tesla. I don't hear the petrol motor kick in. I've got loads and loads and loads of range. I quite like this car. Now we're heading onto the highway and this, oh, and that is the problem with these brakes. They are, they're very much like an ice car brakes. They're kind of nothing, 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 then slowly, yeah, brake, 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 brake. Whereas in an EV, you literally feather the pedal and it goes to an emergency stop. This is much more like a ice car, and obviously it's a big heavy car, so it does take longer to stop. It doesn't give me so much confidence because there's a lot of play before the bite point with the brakes, as you just saw in my slight emergency stop. Now this does also have self-driving capability. Now I'm not really going to test it too much today because it's going to drive pretty much like all other self-driving cars. It's using Hesai LiDARs, so it's got LiDAR units around the car for a company called Hesai. So it's going to be very competent, and me testing it and waiting for it to make a mistake is not going to be very interesting. But it can do self-driving. You know, would I trust this system? Yes. It's not self-developed by ROX, it's self-developed by Hesai. They've been doing this for many years and they know what they're doing. So I have confidence in the self-driving system here. And this is why you secure your load properly. Look at this Bess. Another one, I don't think cornering is the ROX's strong point either, because it's so high on that tall suspension and it's got an engine. So it means the center of gravity is obviously at the bottom where the batteries are, but then it's got the engine at the front. So it's a little bit, it's gonna be very difficult to keep that flat when going around corners. Now, I haven't had too much of a chance to drive it fast around corners on this test drive, but I can feel, even just going around a bend, like at a traffic light, you can feel the body roll a little bit too much. Could you firm up the suspension? Yes, you probably could. Does it need it? No. If you're doing motorway munching miles like this, I don't think anyone's really going to mind. A couple of areas in this SUV that I think could also be improved. Again, steering feel. So light, it's not doing anything. Like very slight imperceptible wobble, but in a, you know, very heavy SUV, I expect it to give me a bit more feedback from the road. Again, the brake I think could do with some improvement as well, but maybe that's because I'm just used to driving EVs with pin sharp braking. Yeah. For me, this car ticks so many boxes. It's great in so many ways. But for me, what lets it down is just its vision, the vision of the company, and really executing that vision in a car. If you're going for the off-roading market, then make it more hardcore. If you're going for the slightly more luxury but premium market, then really go ahead with that. But where the real gap in the market is where Li Auto isn't, and that is having the proper off-road chops to make this go from a good car to a great car.